Welcome to the Long Strange Trip. I'm Josh, the host of the show. We're going to dig into 6 areas together, finding real work-life integration instead of that brutal 95-5 split too many business owners live with. We're going to approach retirement as an actual reinvention rather than just stopping work. And we're facing death honestly and avoiding PTSD around it. We're also building resilience when life throws us curveballs. We're sharing wisdom across generations. And finally, we're understanding the patterns that show up in all our transitions. I'm not coming at this as an expert. I'm a fellow traveler, figuring this stuff out in real time, especially now as I navigate my own dual cancer diagnosis at 73. Welcome to the Long Strange Trip. I'm glad you're here. Hey, how are you today? This is Josh Patrick, and we're with Paul Cronin from Touchstone Advisors. And you are at the Long Strange Trip podcast, where we talk about a variety of topics. But today we're going to talk about transitions, and we're going to talk about seller's remorse, because Paul, as a business advisor, has sold lots of businesses, and he's gone through tons of transitions himself, as well as watching and experiencing seller's remorse along the way. Um, Seller's remorse, by the way, is part of our project when we're talking about retirement reinvention, and uh, going through tons of transitions is our subset of transitions. So let's bring Paul on and we'll start the conversation. Hey, Paul, how are you today?
I'm great, Josh. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for joining me today. So, um, you've been through a bunch of transitions yourself. So
Yeah,
let's talk about a couple of them, and you can get to choose which one you'd like to start with.
sure. I'll actually go back to my corporate days. So I had joined a company right out of college, and what I guess kind of just climbed the ladder, right? Every year I got a little raise and a bonus, and over time I got promotions. And I got to a certain point where I was traveling quite extensively, probably 3-4 days a week, 45 weeks a year. And I was a sales management role. And our company was growing very rapidly, and it was all going what I thought swimmingly well. And I had 2 young children at home. And my wife and I went out to dinner one night, and she kind of gave me an ultimatum. And she said, I can't keep doing this. I've got a full-time job. This is too much. Like, you got to figure this out, right? Or, bad things are going to happen. I actually spent the weekend in bed. It's a true story. I was so traumatized, but it was the epiphany I needed, right? Clearly, it's not the kind of life I wanted. And I sort of marched into my boss's office the next week, and I'm like, hey, this is what's happening. We got to fix this. And he's like, don't quit. We'll fix this. And we did. But that was really step one. And step two, it was the idea that I needed to really get control of my life, and working at the corporation was never going to allow that to happen. We were in a process of an exit anyway, the company. And I had decided that that really wasn't the path for me. So I started my first venture out there raising money. We were building a data analytics engine. And I had that similar sort of experience in different ways therefrom. I didn't have to sleep. I didn't sleep in bed all weekend ever again. or in a depressed state. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So that transition was kind of forced by your wife. Am I correct in that?
That's correct.
And um, in our, sort of model of transitions, which may or may not be the right one to use, is that you go through anticipation, which you had none of because you were kind of blindsided. Then you have ending, which was sort of abrupt in the fact that you had to find a way to end. And then you go into what we call passage, or the messy middle. So talk about that part of the transition that you went through with that job.
Yeah, so it was great. So obviously didn't quit right away. And I was able to sort of work out hiring somebody to take on some of the work I had been doing remotely. I was actually, flying to another facility to oversee a team of inside sales folks. So I hired somebody to take on that role. So that cut like 50% of my travel overnight, which was great. Um, and then sort of the step down from there was I started to see that I needed to, that wasn't enough. There were other, I still wasn't happy, so to speak, right? And there were other things I wanted to accomplish. And being a relatively young man at that time, I think I was around 40. I had this sort of entrepreneurial itch. Um, but at the same time, I really loved the people I work with, right? And that was hard to sort of say goodbye to some of these people. And I wasn't sort of leaving the company right away, but certainly towards the end, that was really hard. I mean, leaving the people and the customers were fine. Um, the new venture that I was sort of putting together at that time would have worked with many of those same customers. These were retail store owners, but not selling them product, supplying a data analytics service for helping them. So, but the people I work with day to day, people I've known for a couple of decades, I wasn't going to be working with them anymore. I wasn't going to the office anymore. So I had another, if you will, identity crisis from that side. And you're going to laugh, but I can remember one day I'm like sitting in my little office here in my house. And at that point, I was used to sort of like, you get up in the morning, you do your thing, you work out your exercise, you get in the car and you go to the office, right? Like, this is it. This is my safe place. Or if I was going flying somewhere, I'd go to the airport. I wasn't doing that. So I would make up these excuses to like, oh, I'm going to stop by the office, talk to so-and-so about something. There was no reason. I could have picked up the phone, but I needed to like go to the office. And I did that a few times and the people were very nice and it was a very small company, but they were like, can we just do this by phone next time? And I was sort of like, okay, got it.
It's amazing when you leave an organization or a career or an industry, how you become a non-person almost overnight. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that is so true. There's a story I'll share. I'll step away from myself for a moment. A gentleman, I was listening to him and he built a very successful software company, like sold it for, I think, 8 digits. And he sold it to one of those 10-digit companies, right? And he said, he had this one coffee shop he liked to go to, because he lived near where he worked. He said, one day it occurred to me that number one, I wasn't sending somebody to the coffee shop for my coffee. And instead I was there. And so he said, in my mind, I went from CEO to seventh in line at the coffee shop. And the whole room, of course, roared, right?
Yeah.
And it's so true.
Yeah. I mean, once you sell your business, and this is a big thing for business owners, and we talk about it a lot, I've written about it probably too much, is that if I'm no longer a business owner, who am I?
Yeah, it's huge. It
You know, and
really
that's
is.
and too many people in your business. Paul's in the M&A business. He helps people buy and sell businesses, mostly sell, I think. Um, and most brokers or investment bankers or whatever level you want to talk about, they want to get a deal done so they can get paid.
Bingo.
And they know what's going to come for their business owner seller because they've been through it a zillion times before, but they never talk about it with the seller. And I think that's malpractice, frankly.
It is. And I get where, I mean, I get where I are coming from. Most people who do M&A, whether you're a broker or guy in Goldman Sachs and guys like me who are kind of in the middle market, as it's called, um, we make 95 to 99% of our money at the closing table.
Yep.
That's motivation.
Yep.
You don't want friction, as I call it. You don't
Yes.
want anyone or anything to interrupt, create friction between that payday. Cause hey, I got a house, I got a mortgage too, right?
Yep.
Um, and if you're younger, like you're raising kids, you got kids in college, right? That there's a lot more in the line. I'm kind of in the fourth quarter of my career. So not the end, fourth quarter, still going. I have to remind
I'm
people of
past the
that.
end of my career, so
There you go. There you go. But at any rate, and so, but I and other people still complain, like when all of a sudden business owners, our clients, the sellers, throw up what we feel are like smoke screens and what's the problem? What's going on here? Why is this thing slowing down? Why are they going to change their mind? And again, it's friction, right? Between us and the closing table. And I know what's going on. It's like, okay, right. We need to have a conversation here.
yeah.
And what I say to people is a question I learned from one of the most brilliant consultants I've ever met, a fellow named Paul Lemberg. I asked this a simple question with a hard, complicated answer. It says, when you think about selling your business, can you tell me what you're really trying to accomplish?
That's a good question.
And what I've learned from that is someone will give you some response like, I fund my retirement. I said, oh, okay. Well, if you could fund your retirement by selling your business, what would that mean to you? And they have to come up with something else, right? Because they
Mhm.
just said, and they might say, well, if I can fund my retirement, I can take the trip to Italy I promised my wife 30 years ago.
Right.
Or I can finally donate money to my alma mater or fill in the blank, right? And then when they tell you that, or they tell me that, I say, wow, that's great. And if you could donate money to your alma mater, what would that mean to you? And you
Mhm.
repeat this process with people. And
That
I
is
have this little joke. They all end up in the same place.
which is
World peace.
oh, okay. Well, that's sort of, sort of like, when people are, you know, have a certain amount of fear in their life. Tony Robbins calls fear false evidence appearing real. And for the most part, I happen to agree with Tony on that.
Yeah.
Um, but the truth is, all the stuff that you were describing are financial issues. And here's where I think that business sales fall on their head. And it's why guys like you hate guys like me involved in deals back when I was doing this, was I would be probing the seller for the soft reasons they were selling their business, which in my experience are much more important and much more dangerous if they don't get it right than the financial reasons. The finances are the finances. I mean, the business owner knows essentially how much money they're going to get out of the deal way before they even think about bringing in an investment banker because they've thought about this constantly. What they haven't thought about constantly, which is where our investigation lies with the long strange trip, which is entire retirement reinvention, which is who are you and what are you going to be for the next 35, 40 years of your life?
Yeah. Yeah.
And my belief is, and I've seen this happen a bunch of times, and M&A people would tell me they don't know why they do. I think is they'll get I would be taking a client through the process of their business. We start talking about the letter of intent, and then out of the blue, the owner calls me up and says, I'm not sure about this deal,
Right.
and it's got nothing to do with the money. It's got nothing to do with the terms. It's got to do with who they are and what they're going to be. And their buddies who have sold their business who continually and constantly complain to them about how bored they are. And they say to themselves, gee, I don't want that happen to me.
Yep.
So do you have a solution for that?
Yeah.
I don't, by the way.
It's a fabulous question, and it's a hard, complicated answer. So, um, the short answer is people who own businesses, or really most of us, all of us, we have to work to support ourselves, right?
Yes.
But we also work to find some sense of purpose in our life,
Yeah.
right? And so, how do you replace that sense of purpose? And purpose to me is a combination of what you do and who you're connected to. Like,
Right.
who do you do that, whatever that is, with? All right. If you think of my story there about like I had to go to my old office, I didn't work there anymore to like ask a question. No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Right. I missed that human connection.
Yeah.
Right. So that's part of it. But then there's purpose and then there's meaning in life. And they're not the same thing, in my opinion.
No, they're
Purpose
not at
is
all.
more of this outward expression, connection. It's activities. Right? I did a whole blog series on LinkedIn about this, all these different activities. I call a framework for purposeful living. But meaning, okay, meaning, I believe, can really only be derived from the actions you take and the response from others. Of my life has meaning because of how I'm interacting with, loving other people.
Hmm.
I mean, the movie It's a Wonderful Life, right? Just
Yeah.
watched it again, which I had, every Christmas, had once in a while.
Okay.
And yes, it's Frank Capra and it's Hollywood and it's all that. But you know what? There's a lot of what it's all about right there.
Yes. So here's been my experience is that business owners tend to spend 95% of their efforts on their business and 5% on the rest of their life. You know,
Right.
that vacation to Italy could have easily been accomplished if we expanded that to 10% for the rest of my life, or maybe 15%. And if you've been in business for 30 years and you can't find a way to take 15% of your life away and go on that trip to Italy with your spouse, there's something seriously wrong with your business.
Exactly
And you
right.
need to start looking at that.
Yep.
The challenge comes in, and this is something that, we're not going to really talk about today, but it's something I struggle with, which what I call the 95-5 owner, which is 95% of their business and 5% of their family. And you can get away with that maybe in your 40s and 50s and 60s, but you really shouldn't be getting away with it in your 30s because that's when your kids are young and your kids need you around. You need to find a way, and I'm not going to get into that today because, frankly, I did a terrible job and I don't know how to do it. But you need somehow to get to 20-25% family and 75% business. And some
I,
people say you need more, but I'd say the minimum is 20-25%.
yeah, I think there's a lot of truth in that, Josh. There really is. It reminds me of this story I heard. So Harvard Business School professor Colin Christensen, I wrote a
Uh-huh.
number of books. He was a devout Christian, and but he and his team, they only worked Monday to Friday.
Yep.
The story was he would lock the office up for the weekend,
Yep.
and then his boss would say, "Well, gee, I really need you, to come in on Saturday. We gotta, do this and that." And he's like, "I work 10, 12 hours a week, Monday to Friday. My people do the same thing." And, and he said, but what do you need done? He goes, well, X, Y, Z. And he said, well, this Saturday isn't a good one. Maybe I'll squeeze something in next week. So then his boss said, well, how about Sunday? And so Colin replied the following, at least in the interview, was, well, boss, I can't do that, because Saturday is my time for my family and Sunday is my time for God.
Yep.
And that was the end. He never had that he said he never had to have that conversation with his boss again.
Oh, great. That's at least his boss was reasonable about that. Some bosses aren't.
No.
So going back to, selling a business and the challenge that comes in there, this was the challenge for me. Every time I've gotten out of a business, I've gotten out of several now over my lifetime, my social circle from that business falls away faster than you can possibly believe. I got out of my wealth management business a year ago. It's almost exactly a year ago, last January. And over the last year, I have had 0 phone calls, 0 questions from old clients, 0 anything from anybody from that industry. Now, if I had not been working on this new project I've got, which came out of the blue, it actually didn't. It came out of a lunch with a friend of mine, but that's a different story. And I would be a pretty lonely guy right now. And the challenge that I have, and I think the challenge that a lot of business owners have, is your entire social circle is designed around your business.
Yeah.
All your friendships are suppliers, coworkers, vendors, professional people. You go out to dinner with these folks, you have lunch meetings, you think you've got this great relationship. And of course, it's going to last past me selling my business. I hate to give you the bad news. It's not. So,
No, it's so true. Yeah, so
so the
true.
question I have, Paul, um, how do you help people get past that? Because, whether it's conscious or subconscious, and I think most of the time it's subconscious, owners get cold feet when they get close to selling the business because they look over the ledge and they just don't like what's sitting there. How do you help them find something they would like that would be sitting there?
Yeah, one of the things. So I start the conversation at the early part of the conversations about whether or not they should sell their business, and I have this little exercise, and I'll happy to share it with you after the program. And it's a little simple worksheet. All right, got across the top has a question. It says, what can I accomplish by selling my business? Personal goals, business goals, financial goals. I'll give a few examples. All right.
No.
And I asked them to really dig into this. Try to have 3 in each. I said, the reason you need 3 in each is nobody gets 9. Okay. You'll get some combination of those. But if you don't list them down, and if all you think about is, the number, you're going to disappoint it. So that's one thing to start the process up front. But on the other is to share this frame for purposeful living. And again, I can show you the graphic, what it looks like. But imagine a pie with 10 slices. And each of the slices represents a portion of your life or a set of activities: physical health, intellectual health, spiritual health. All right. Activities with family, activities with your spouse or life partner, figuring out where you're going to live, figuring out other income producing work. How are you going to volunteer? Where are you going to donate money? Particularly if you're going to sell a business for tens of millions of dollars, you are going to be hit up by everybody who you
You
don't
are.
know yet for money. Right.
Yeah,
But then your question about it is, how do I create new social connections in my life?
that's the big
And
one.
it requires thinking about social connections differently. And one of the
Uh,
questions is, outside of work, this is the exercise I have people
yes.
go through. Outside of work, all right, how do I interact with other people? Outside of work, what do people think of me? So when you do that outside of work, you start connecting to the people that you interact with, that barista at the coffee shop, okay?
Yeah.
The pastor at your house of worship, okay? I don't know, the clerk at the corner store. There are some people you interact with, your bartender, if that's your flavor, all right?
Uh-huh.
And learn and observe and try to understand what those people think of you, what they appreciate you for. Obviously, your family, your friends, right? And it's through those people that you'll start to see your importance in some way. And then you can think about activities that can increase that importance. When you do that, you start to create. I know that people think of the social network as, this online stuff, but we all have some kind of social network. For business owners, it tends to be, as you say, related to their job or their industry or their work. But even if you're not a business owner, a lot
Even
of people
sen
still
even
do that.
senior executives. in
Absolutely.
companies who work 60, 70 hours a week. They have no time for outside activities, really.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll play some tennis, maybe they'll get a few days of skiing in, maybe they'll, play a little bit of adult hockey or, whatever they can come up with. But frankly, the sad thing about that also is those relationships go away immediately as soon as you can't play the game anymore. I used to be a very, very avid tennis player. I haven't talked to one of my well, that's not true. There's one ex-tennis buddy I have a regular relationship with outside of tennis.
Yeah.
One. I used to play with 15 or 20 people on a rotating basis.
Yeah.
Same thing with skiing.
Well, here's the thing. If you like to read books, there are book clubs.
Yeah, there are,
All
and
right.
frankly, I need to join one or
There you
3.
go. Well, I'm going to send you this exercise. You motivated me. You'll
Yeah,
like it.
it's really I mean, the truth is one of the things that's, sad for me is I have a large social network. None of them are in Vermont.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true. I think 3 or 4 people are in Vermont, but the
Yep.
truth is almost none of them are in Vermont, so it's almost impossible for me to have a real relationship. I mean, Zoom relationships really don't count.
They're okay. They're
They're
better
nice.
than
They're
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 better than
nice. It's sort
nothing.
of like cotton. It's better than nothing, that's for sure.
Right.
But but the truth is, um, men especially appear to me, and this is an appearance, and I'm not sure it's completely true, they have a much larger problem with remorses of leaving a career than women do.
I agree.
Well, women tend to have much larger outside local social networks than men
And deeper networks
and
and
deeper.
deeper
My wife
relationships, in
is,
my
I mean, I look
observation.
at my wife's, social network in Vermont, and it's pretty darn big. I look at my sisters. My sister's a raging extrovert. I'm a raging introvert. But she's got I call her the mayor of Burlington because she knows everybody. Anytime I go out, there's someone there that she knows.
Yeah.
I've been going to the airport now for 40 years. I think 3 or 4 times out of 40 years, probably hundreds of flights, have I ever seen anybody I know.
Well, part of this exercise that I've been talking about on LinkedIn, this process really is you can build your social connections, is what I call them, your social
Yeah,
network, your social connections through other activities. So if
yeah,
you were to choose to say, okay, I'm going to volunteer, I don't know, make the recycling committee in my community,
yep,
whatever. Okay. You volunteer, the other people all volunteers. There might be some paid person, whatever, who organizes things and make sure there's coffee. Um, but you, but rather like work, right? You would say, hey, are you hungry? You want to get a sandwich?
yeah,
And it's just simple things like that. And then it's
yep,
like, oh, you like to hike too. I love to hike. Where have you hiked before?
yep.
Whatever it might be.
It could
Oh, you
be,
read that book. And,
yeah,
and particularly for men, our relationships are what I call activity driven.
they are.
They're action, like I'm doing something, I'm playing a particular
Yeah,
sport or I'm going to a game or whatever. And so there's this sort of, if you think of boys, right, we go around, we bump into each other,
yeah,
right? Right. Um, and I raised daughters. And they happen to be athletes. So they bumped into other girls. But then I also observed the relationships they had that had nothing to do with an activity.
right.
It was just being,
Yeah.
being
So
together.
it's an interesting thing, and I'm sure it's something that we will be revisiting here many, many, many times because it's a hugely big deal. We think that retirement reinvention should be something that's easy to do. The truth is, it's really hard and it can be really painful and really lonely, especially if you're in passage and you haven't done any preparation for what's coming down the pike.
Agreed. Agreed.
So, any rate, Paul, we are out of time, believe it or not.
It flew
But
by, Josh, as always.
as always, I told you it would. So, If somebody wanted to find you, how would they go about doing so?
Reach out to me on LinkedIn. Paul F. Cronin is the easy way. I'm the only Paul F. Cronin on LinkedIn to my knowledge. And the other is if you want to send me an email, you can send me an email. It's pcronin@touchstoneadvisors.com.
Cool. And if you've enjoyed this podcast episode and you think you would be a good guest for the Long Strange Trip podcast, just send me an email. Really easy. Just send it to jpatrick@stage2solution.com. That's the number 2 and solution is singular. So it's jpatrick@stage2solution.com. If you think you'd be a good guest and you're a little bit scared, we'll set up a time for us to talk and we'll see if it really is that scary because frankly, I don't think it is, but okay. So thanks a lot for stopping by and taking a listen or a watch today. I really appreciate it. I hope to see you back here really soon. This is Josh Patrick. We're with Paul Cronin, and you're at the Long Strange Trip podcast. Thanks for spending this time with me today. I really appreciate you being part of this journey. I'd be grateful if you'd leave an honest rating and review. It helps other people find these conversations, lets me know what's landing with you and what isn't. If you love the show, give us 5 stars. And if you hate it, give it 1 star and I'll just cry a little bit. Keep asking the hard questions. Keep being honest about what's difficult. And remember, we're all just trying to figure this out together. I'll talk to you next time on the Long Strange Trip. Thanks for stopping by.